Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's live lesson. Today's live lesson is going to be about figurative language. Why are we always looking at figurative language? Why do you need to know it? We're going to look at that. But if you look at the marking criteria on most of your assignments, you'll see that you get marks for putting in some metaphors, marks for putting in similes, marks for putting in personification, all these sort of things. So if you don't know what these are and get them stuck into your essay, you're going to throw away marks. Okay, and we know you must not lose marks for no good reason. The other thing is in your in your progression tests or in your exam, you might have to identify certain parts of speech in a passage, like in your comprehension. Okay, no worries. One of the ladies has just joined us, so that's good. Nice to see you. Okay, so we're going to take a look at some info on figurative language, and hopefully once and for all, we'll get it into your head and you'll be able to use it very easily. Okay, right, let's share a document. Surprise. Figurative language. Okay, let's look at that and see if you can remember it once and for all, forever and ever. Okay, right. Figurative language is language that uses a figure of speech as a description, a word or phrase that cannot be understood from the normal, literal meaning of the individual words. It's generally used so the reader can visualize what the writer is imagining. The reader then experiences a different way of looking at things, your way, and this can give him a different insight or a new perception of something that he had never thought of before. So you, as the writer, can manipulate the reader's mind. Okay, and this is how you're going to do it, by using figurative language. Right, we're going to look at 6 very common figures of speech that you really, really need to know. Okay, we're going to go through them, and a bit later on we'll look at some examples. Okay, right, the first one that's very commonly used in narrative writing and poetry. Don't forget poetry. If you have to analyze a poem, you need to know some figures of speech because the poet is definitely going to use them. Right, let's look at the first one. Is called alliteration. Alliteration. What is alliteration? That's when there's an initial letter, usually a consonant or sound used in words that are close together. Okay, so alliteration, looking for consonant sounds that are close together. All right, for example, safe and sound, you've got your S sound. Rant and rave, you've got your R sound. And of course, the infamous Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, you've got your P sound. Okay, so that's all that alliteration really means. And you're usually asked to identify that. And sometimes you just write it automatically. But alliteration, how can you remember that? If you look at this alliteration, you've got a double L, you've got a double consonant, okay? And that should hopefully remind you that it's a consonant sound you have to look for. Okay, that's a very common one in comprehensions to ask about. Pick out in paragraph 2 some alliteration, okay? That's the first one, alliteration. Let's look at assonance. Assonance, okay? That's another very common one that you can well be asked to do. And what does it mean? When vowels rhyme in 2 or more words, which must be close enough together in a sentence to create an effect of some kind. For example, fun in the sun. There you've got your sound of the vowel. White light tonight. There you got your I sound. Here's some more I sounds. Mice ate rice twice. Okay, that's called assonance because it's vowel sounds that are close together. How can you remember the different assonance as opposed to alliteration? Assonance begins with a vowel and ends with a vowel. So if you can remember that, that's how you're going to remember the difference. Alliteration has got the double L, the consonant. It's consonant sounds you're looking for. Assonance has got the vowels. So it's vowel sounds you're looking at. Okay. Alliteration and assonance. Quite important because you can be asked to find those examples or maybe even give them. Right, let's look at the third very common figure of speech that's used, which is the metaphor. A metaphor. What's a metaphor? It's when you say one thing is another. So you're comparing two different things, but you're saying they're similar. For example, the law is an ass. That's a very common one because we don't always agree with what some judgment has come out as. So we say the law is an ass. It's not really, but that's what we're saying. We're using a metaphor. The brain is a machine. Is it? I just thought it was a blob of jelly in your head. No, the brain is a machine. It's a metaphor. Because we know a machine works quickly, or a computer or whatever, it's analyzing stuff all the time. And that's what our brain is doing, even though some people may appear sleepy and dozy and whatnot. Okay, then the next one, night is a safe harbor. Particularly for children, they want to be all snuggled up in their bedrooms, in their little beds, all cozy and safe. So you could say night is a safe harbor. And of course, a safe harbor is where ships go back to if there's a storm starting just when they leave or whenever. So that literally is a safe harbor. But we're saying night is a safe harbor. Now, metaphors are used every single day, all the time. And the good thing about them is you can make up your own. That's why it's great to use them in writing. You don't need to give a great big long explanation of anything. You just make up a metaphor. My uncle is a raging bull. Straight away, we know what your uncle is like. Okay? So metaphors, when you say one thing is another. Okay. And then the last three. Then we've got a very long word, onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia. Okay? This is when you use words to recreate the sound they describe. Splash, squelch, bang, rattle, crash, splat. That is just onomatopoeia. So if you have to give an example of onomatopoeia, that's all you have to do. Give a little word like that. Pop, clonk, clunk. I mean, you're making up some of them, but it's just the sound that you're talking about. So onomatopoeia is the sound word. We'll look at lots of examples a bit later on. Right, the last two now. Personification. Personification. What on earth does that mean? It's when you give human traits and qualities to animals, things, or ideas as if they were people. Okay? You're going to pretend that object is a person. We're not looking at irony today. Look at it later. The tornado screeched all night long. So does a tornado screech? Can a tornado speak? No, we're attributing something, some quality of humanness to this tornado. So the tornado screeched all night long. So we know it was very noisy, very loud. Okay, so only people screech, scream, and cry. Okay. The city boiled in the heat. Can a city actually boil? Do we put it in a pot and boil it? No, we do not. A person can say, I'm boiling or I'm freezing. But we're making the city a bit like a person, and we're saying the city boiled in the heat. So it's a lot of poetry, songs, writing, have a lot of personification in them, particularly all the children's cartoons. There's always some creature that's got human-like qualities. An ant that can speak, a fish that can speak. No, not in the real life. That's called personification. Okay? And the last one we're looking at today is similes. Oh, okay. Someone else has just joined us. Hi there. We're going to look at similes. It's when you compare two objects which are not really alike except in one aspect. And always you're going to see the word as or the word like. And that's how you recognize a simile straight away. It's got some of those words in it. For example, as fast as lightning, as good as gold. He ran like the wind. So again, we're describing things and we're using a simile. So we're comparing two objects which normally you wouldn't really compare. Would you compare the boy, he ran like, and the wind? Normally, not really. He ran like the wind. That's our simile. So we know he's running very fast because the wind can blow strongly, can't it? Okay, so there are the six very common ones. Okay, someone's asking. I will mail it to you. We'll probably have to do next week as well, of course, but anyway. Right, so we've got alliteration when there's a consonant sound that you have to identify. Assonance, when you've got the vowel sound that you have to identify. A metaphor, when you say one thing is another. You're comparing different things. Yes, no worries. And is someone else looking for it? Because you'll need to use this for the rest of your academic career in English. Metaphor, when we're saying one thing is another. Onomatopoeia, using words to recreate the sound. So onomatopoeia just means a sound. Buzzing of a bee, that sort of thing. And personification, you're making things, ideas, qualities of human traits, qualities and ideas, or animals, things, ideas. You're making it into like a person. Personification. Okay, and the last one we've got is the simile. When you compare two objects which are not alike, except in one aspect, and you'll pick it out easily because it's always got the word as or like in it. Okay, I hope everyone's got that in there. And even just look at this picture. What have they done to the moon? They've personified the moon because they've given it a nose, a mouth, a tongue. The moon doesn't really have that. We know it's a planet, so it's been personified. There's just one example straight away before we go any further. Now, how does figurative language enhance your writing? Okay, let's have a wee look at that, because it's going to make your writing better. As we said, you'll get more points, you'll get more marks, and you're going to look very erudite and smart if you use any of those figures of speech that we've just looked at. So figurative language, i.e. the use of metaphors, similes, and all the other ones, not only add to the reader's imaginary experience, but you can even elicit emotion and help readers imagine what's going on. So you draw the reader into your story. So if you wanted to write a book, for example, which can bring you in lots of money by and by, you want to make sure you've used lots of imagery in it, which are figures of speech. Okay, because the reader gets very interested in these. It's also an effective way of communicating an idea that's not easily understood. because it's very complex or very abstract, and some people find it's difficult to think about it. For example, the Dementors in Harry Potter, for those who've read that. We're going to be looking at that a bit later on because we've got some examples there. Now, figurative language. The emotional tone of writing is the mood it creates, symbolizes, or suggests. Figurative language can communicate themes and emotions, which can take many forms, and the way an author chooses to use figurative language influences how the story evolves and plays out. Okay? Writers use specially chosen words to convey emotions and feelings, and the choice of these words creates the tone the writer wants the reader to embrace. So again, you as the writer are manipulating the reader. What you're imagining, are you happy, sad, what is your characters like? You are manipulating the person reading it. And this is how you're going to do it. Aha, a second eye. A third eye would also be good there. Okay, now let's just remind ourselves what is tone? Is the viewpoint character's attitude. So the main person in your story is the viewpoint character, okay? And if it asks you in a comprehension who is the viewpoint character, you must write his name. You mustn't just say he is writing in the first person or something. You must put his name. Tone can be identified using words that describe emotions and other mental states, okay? The viewpoint character's perception of and reaction to sights, sounds, odors, touch, taste, all the feelings add to the tone. If you want to make it happy, or if you want to make it gloomy, if you want to make it tense, you're going to use adjectives and adverbs that describe those very feelings. So figurative language is one clue to identifying the tone of an extract, a passage, a poem, or narrative writing. So you, when you make your plan, are going to plan your words that you're going to use to set the tone in your writing. And mood, what is mood? Mood is the atmosphere of the story felt by the reader, and it's created using the setting, the attitude, the theme, the tone, the description, and the writer controls all of them by his choice of words. As we said, tone, the attitude of the character in the story, and mood is the atmosphere. Okay, that's just to remind you why we're talking about figurative language in your stories. Remember, figurative language makes a comparison that's not meant to be read literally. The words on the page don't mean the same thing. They are intended to create a connection of some kind or highlight something significant. So the literary devices like similes, metaphors, personification help create word pictures for the reader. Again, here's another example of personification. Have you ever seen a ladybug with a face, with nice false eyelashes, a nose, and a smile? No, we've attributed human qualities into a ladybug. So personification there, straight in front of your eyes. Okay, let's look at some of those figures of speech in more detail. The first one we're going to look at is alliteration. Remember, alliteration, it's got that double L, it's got the consonant. Alliteration is a repetition of a particular consonant sound at the beginning of words or in the stressed syllable in a verse. For example, what sound can you hear? She sells seashells on the seashore. So we've got the S sound and the sh sound. Okay. My cat caught a crocodile crunching on some carrots. We've got a C sound here. Again, it's alliteration because it's a consonant sound. And the usual one, Peter Pepper picked a peck of pickled peppers. We've got the P sound. Okay, so that's your alliteration. Let's look at a little verse from when you were a little young child, from your nursery rhyme days. The repeated sound is the stressed syllable of a word. Peas porridge hot, peas porridge cold. Peas porridge in the pot, 9 days old. Okay, so you've got again your P sound here. Peas porridge. Right, alliteration is used a lot in adverts and advertising. If you can think of one that drives you crazy, it's usually got alliteration or maybe assonance in it. I'll put some examples of both here. If you can think of any, stick them on the web chat. For example, this one, pick up a penguin. A penguin was the name of some kind of chocolate biscuit. So that was their alliteration to make people remember. Pick up a penguin. Okay. Don't renew it, just be and cue it. That's another one to make you remember. It's more assonant. Mac. You've got your M and Q sound there. Alliteration, mac. You just remember it because it's like that. Alliteration. It's not inside, it's on top. We've got the I assonant sound there. So alliteration makes writing sound powerful and enthusiastic, so everyone remembers it. Okay, so adverbs that drive you mad are generally going to have alliteration in it. And we'll look at the difference between alliteration and assonance. What is the difference between alliteration and assonance? Assonance, vowels, because there's one at the beginning and the end. Alliteration, there's your consonants right there. Alliteration and assonance do not have the same letters, they have the same sounds. Alliteration has the consonant sound, assonance has the vowel sound. Let's look at the examples. We're looking at an F sound. Fine, foolish, photo, effort. All got the same sound, but they have different spelling. It doesn't matter about the spelling. You have to know what it sounds like. So fine, foolish, F's, PH is the F sound. Double F, again an F sound. Fine, foolish, photo, effort. It's alliterative. So it has a consonant sound. Look at the next one with the assonant vowel sound. The guy is flying high to die. So that I sound, guy, fly, high, die, is assonant. Okay, so it's a vowel sound. Why? The same sounds are repeated even when the letters are different. So that's how they sometimes trick you and you're like bamboozled. Why can that be the same? Why is it assonance? Why is it alliteration? Simply because it's the sound. So maybe you'll have to say it aloud and you're talking to the wall there saying things aloud. And your mum thinks you're going a bit cuckoo when she comes in the room. Let's look at assonance. Assonance intensifies the meaning of a text, which makes it enjoyable to read or listen to. It puts stress on identical vowel sounds in a phrase or a word. Can you see we are free? Okay, we've emphasized that sound. It's a vowel sound. Note that the sound does not have to be at the start or the end of the word. It can be in the middle. And this is where people get very puzzled. It's not at the beginning of the end. How can that possibly rhyme? It's not really about rhyming. It's about the sound you hear. So the vowel sounds like a connecting vowel, which is repeated to create like an internal rhyme inside a word. Used a lot by poets, songwriters, and rappers. So we'll look at that later. Assonance is known as the building block of verse and helps writers please and entertain their audience. So assonance is very important. Let's look at some assonance here. The rain in Spain stays mainly on the plain. So we've got the A sound stressed. Okay, if you hear a stress, you're supposed to put this symbol above it. Okay, so the rain in Spain stays mainly on the plain. Then you know it's not the phonic sound. Remember, the phonic sound of the vowels is a, e, o, a. Okay, but this is going to be the stressed a, e, I, o, u. Here's some other nursery rhyme ones. As I was going to St. Ives, I met a man with 7 wives. So again, you've got your I sound, all the I's. That's what you would pick out as being assonance. Same with this one, twinkle, twinkle, little star, I sound. But this is more the phonic one, twinkle, twinkle, little star. And the last one, we've got the ah sound, which again is the short phonic sound. Pat a cake, baker's man. Short phonic sound, whoops. Here's two quite famous older songs. You may not know them. You might not even have heard of Metallica. Life, it seems, will fade away, drifting further every day. Okay, and here's one by Bob Dylan. You may have heard of him. I'm looking to block you up, shock, knock, lock, etc. So they have used assonance to write their songs. Ooh, thank you. Somebody's telling me we've got 30 seconds. All right, we will continue with this next week because it's very important that you know these sounds. Well, know these figures of speech, really. The 6 we're looking at: alliteration, assonance, metaphor, onomatopoeia, personification, and similes. So hopefully you've learned a little bit about it. I'll send it to those who've asked for it. But next week we will continue because I want you to know this very, very well. So you can just do it in the blink of an eye. You don't have to think about it. Okay, thanks very much for joining us. And hopefully I shall see you next time.